You're tuning in to the Bueno Power Hour podcast. To another episode of the Bueno Power Hour podcast. I am your host, Arthur Bueno, and on this episode, I have a very special guest. I've been spinning their record over the last few weeks, and
one Chardonnay and one white sangria.
Sure. sounds like they're actually
We're at
ordering
a bar.
some drink.
Yeah, we're getting ready for this interview.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. So I'm talking with Andi and Pei. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so this is Andi and Pei from Concrete. They just recently released their album not too long ago, Drifter, and one of the most compelling records, I think, for me this year. Incredible work, guys. I cannot believe that it had finally came after 3 fucking years. Jesus Christ, dude.
Yes, Jesus Christ, literally.
Yeah, a lot of story to that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, before we kind of, getting really deep with the record, first of all, I kind of want to know sort of the beginnings of this band, and I don't know how I found you guys specifically, but I think I found you guys. I think on some sort of Facebook, like promotion kind of thing, or a friend in my Facebook feed had sort of featured you guys of some sort. Ever since then, I started, kind of following you up, and I saw, only videos at the time, and a bedroom single, which was Iris Sky, which
Nice.
Something that I had listened to for maybe the last, or at that point for months and months, because I was really curious as to see what was going on with you guys. But tell me about you guys.
Yeah. Hey, you wanna take this?
So Andy and I met through a friend in New York. So he just moved to New York then, and we found out that we were actually in the same college. Except that I graduated.
Which college did you guys go to?
We both went to Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So by the time he got in New York, I've already graduated for like 4 years. So we didn't actually meet in school, but we met each other through a friend, and I realized that we both, played in bands before, and I was in a band at a moment, and then Andy told me that he really wanted to start a math rock band or like an instrumental band, and that was really cool because I've been doing that in New York with other people at the time, and then we just kind of figured that, hey, we want to start this band, and let's get some people together, let's jam. Yeah, that's when we introduced. I got to know Kenji earlier, so
right.
He's an amazing bassist. If you hear the album, he's crazy grooves. Yeah. Yeah. So then we went for a jam with drummer Kiyoshi. He also played in the album, and he was with us with the band until recently. And yes, and we jammed and clicked, and we figured that we should start the band, and then we finally got it started in I think it was 2016 October. Yeah. So you're right. It's really been 3 years. Yeah. Till the first album came out. Yeah.
So that kind of, I was on the train coming home from New York today, and just writing a bunch of questions on this, and just prior to that, just kind of wanted to see how did you guys take this sort of direction in Concrete. What were some of the bands in your guys' scene were you influenced by?
Yes. So one of the biggest influence, very obviously, is Toe.
Of course.
So yes, they're one of the, I think, biggest, most famous math rock band from Japan. Um, I think they're pretty much the reason why I started to like math rock. That really
Mm-hmm.
got me into this genre.
Mm-hmm.
So I really got into them since college. I started to make some demos in my college dorm, just kind of like imitate their styles, which is kind of going back to what Pei was just saying. When I moved to New York, um, I was really looking forward to actually making a band out of those demos. So I showed Pei a few demos. He really liked it, so we just started this project. But yeah, Toe is definitely one of the biggest influence. Um, we also listen to a lot of jazz music, which honestly shares a lot of commonalities with math rock. Although many
Absolutely.
people think it's a totally different genre,
Mm-hmm.
we actually got most of the inspiration, especially the rhythmic ones, the chord progression, these kind of like ideas from jazz. Um, so I think we actually have a playlist that we are making. We to put all the influence of us into this one playlist that we're gonna share it to the public soon.
Absolutely. What about you, Pei? I mean, was was also Toe kind of one of the reason why you started playing this style of music, or was there any type of like bands like in the local scene, or maybe in some of the recommendations you received over the years that started you in playing like in this style and just playing guitar in general?
Oh, I mean, like I said, I was already in an instrumental rock band
Mm-hmm.
um, when I met Andy, but definitely Toe was one of the inspiration that got me started. We were actually, it's funny because we were just talking about it earlier between me and Andy that how Toe is different from other math rock bands is because their music is not too technical, so that it will put off some casual listeners.
Mm-hmm.
So their music's actually in the middle ground where everyone could find it accessible instead of finding it too, too abstruse to understand to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, for me personally, they were an intermediate between post rock and more technical genres. Because before that, I was more playing in a post rock band, more influences from the likes of like Explosion in the Sky, This Will Destroy You,
Right.
things like that. Yeah.
Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah, and I mean, meeting with Andy and Kenji and all the others, really, we kind of mingled our styles all together with the ambiance from post rock with the jazz grooves, the R&B grooves. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it turned out really nice in a way that we all influence each other some in certain ways.
Yeah, I upon listening to obviously the demo and some of the videos that you posted up until this record, it I was first of all I was very excited upon the release because again I've been waiting for 3 years to see what you guys were gonna make because clearly the influence of Toe, and I'm a big fan of Toe. I've seen them play in a small space here in Connecticut, and up close and personal, seeing those members just jam out, and uh, would also have to validate the aspect where they were a band that were more about the melodies rather than the technicalities, and they had such great flow. Even in some of the like songs and some of their records, definitely have an R&B jazz kind of vibe. And I was so curious about this when listening to the record, like for weeks. How has theory played into your guys' music on this record? Was it a big part of it, or was it something where you guys was just like, maybe we can try doing this, and maybe like kind of transition to these certain parts because it has a different flow? Like what kind of got you guys to make such a record where it was
Yeah,
still technical, but it was still accessible and very like pleasing to the ear?
yeah. So, many of us are very into jazz. By that, we are very into like contemporary music, contemporary jazz and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then we play that kind of stuff casually, like just for fun.
Right.
So I think we have a vocabulary of like, a lot of theory, rhythmic wise or chord progression wise. As for composing for this specific band, let's talk about rhythm. I think a lot of the rhythms are, even though they say it's math rock, which means a lot of the things are being computed, we tend to not do that.
Right.
My theory is, before people invented rhythm, they just like hum songs without any particular rhythm.
Right.
And they think that is, that makes sense. Until like people get into, very rhythmic stuff, they try to fit things into 4/4, 3/4. Then I actually think that is unnatural. So a lot of the song, like But I Still, started with me personally just singing the melody without really thinking about any rhythm. And then later I analyze them to be like, oh, this part is, 4, that part is 5. Then it becomes a song. So it really start with, the feel before any, numbers comes in.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
I think it's like having the melody first, then you have to, have your nerd out a little bit so that everybody else in the band can figure out how to follow it.
Yeah.
Right.
In this latter part of If Time Has a Turning Point, I remember when Pei was kind of writing this song, he literally was imagining himself being on stage, swinging the guitar. And then that becomes the rhythm. That becomes the reason why, some parts are 2, some parts are 3, and they kind of intersect. So that's how we kind of figure out rhythm in general. As for chord progression, I think, I think there's probably more theory coming to chord progression here, especially if we want to express a climax or, that sort of thing. We try to think of, should we change the color of the song by, transitioning to another key, that sort of stuff. I'm personally also very influenced by a lot of like neo soul,
Yes.
or like even just like some contemporary jazz, where there's a lot of a parallel movement of the chord progression instead of just staying in one central key.
Right.
So I think I'm pretty influenced by that. You can see from like Iris Sky or even like, let me think, the beginning of Time Has a Turning Point.
Has a big climax with
yes,
the key change.
Reverie has like a very huge climax when, the very last part. I think that turned out to be really well. So yeah, I would say chord progression is more thought of more than rhythm, where we're just kind of like filling it.
Right. Because there's definitely a very, very natural feel to this record, and I can't express enough how well the order of the songs was done on this record. Like it seemed as though you guys really, really, really thought about this record and took care of these songs quite well, and it was so tight. You know what I mean? It was natural, but it was tight. And it really shows. Now, are you guys doing standard tuning on this record?
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much. We only use K-fold to
Yeah.
shift the key. Yeah.
Okay, because you know why I asked that, right? Because most math rock bands, and it's a bad thing or anything like that, but most bands gravitate towards alternate tunings, and they somehow sort of find certain like types of chord voicings and such, really pretty stuff, but it ends up at one point sort of like roadblocking them because they're not able to kind of maneuver around like most standard tuning like players.
Especially if you want to improvise a little bit on the spot, it makes it really hard because you're so used to the standard tuning. If you like don't tune it that way, it's really hard to improvise.
Yeah, it's hard to follow, and it's pretty difficult to find a particular note if you miss the standard tuning.
Also, it really restrains you into some particular key center,
Yes.
which is something I'm not trying to do.
And
Yeah.
that's and I get it. I mean, what sort of broke the mold for me, as far as because I actually used to do. I'm a guitar player myself, and I used to
Mhm.
do open tunings like years ago. This was when
Mhm.
like bands in like the Midwest were coming out and sort of introducing this,
Yeah.
idea. Um,
Yeah.
Particularly, it was like American football for me, and Captain
Mhm.
Jazz, and
Mhm.
Owls, and Make Believe. It wasn't until I think when we got to Toe, or at least for me, that I sort of rethought that idea. Then, like years along, when Chan came out, I was like, okay, I think if I can make, if I can make pretty like sounding stuff, I mean, I don't really have to go far beyond like the tuning that I'm already in already. So it's impressive. I mean, the melodies it really it's very catchy, and that's really what sort of like got me so hooked on it. It's a catchy record. And was this on purpose? That was your guys' concept, make it an instrumental record where you not only have like those catchy hooks, but it sort of has a kind of vocal kind of output without not having any vocals into the record?
I think whatever we made, we wanted to sound good to ourselves first,
Okay.
and then and a lot of things as Andy mentioned, a lot of the music actually derived from neo soul, jazz. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
jazz we keep it very just to the transitions and to the rhythms. We don't want all that complicated jazz, progressions to interfere with the feeling. Because I think where we start from is still like the central emotion of this whole record.
Right.
So we know how we should feel for each song, and then we don't want technicality to get in the way. So I think being catchy um, is just how we wanted to sound good, how we wanted
Okay.
to be. We can hear the message instead of just hearing ourselves playing the notes.
Right, right, right. The a
Yeah.
message a message does really come across. Go ahead, Andy.
Oh yeah. I was gonna say, yeah, when especially arranging this record, it really like a lot of the things started from piano. So I guess this is also why, like I am personally not a big fan of open tuning, because open tuning is, you're sort of like playing around to find a note that you think sounds good instead
Yeah.
of intentionally trying to find a melody that you like and try to map that to the guitar.
Yeah.
And I think when we are making this record, it really starts from, a melody, or it's more like arranging for, like from my own perspective, it's like arranging for a string quartet.
Yeah.
Um, and that's kind of like the process of, harmonizing the guitars, finding counterpoint. A lot of
Yeah.
like these theoretical stuff like comes from, oops, uh, comes from that.
Mm,
Um,
mm, mm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's towards like the end of the record, you guys obviously have, a big climax from that last three songs.
Hmm.
And it's a beautiful like arrangement, and I think I really dug how, again, going back to the arrangement, even with like the song listings, there's certainly a message, a melody, and sort of a focus point, that you're trying to like voice out like musically. And on this particular interview that Pei did, or that you guys did, it was from it's a breezy.com. There was actually a note saying, or at least a comment of you, Pei, about the record, which stated, uh, It's a story about the life that's constantly on the move, where uncertainty and determination play tug of war. It's often struggles to seek belonging, with occasional glitters of joy and fragments of nostalgia along the way. Eventually, we accept and make peace with where we are and what we have become. Now, I definitely believe what was said here on this record about the record really does speak out in that whole those lines alone. And what's cool about this record is that there is a a really really good movement of emotion you guys are trying to create, and towards the ending there's almost like a clear, like, okay, everything's gonna be all right. Was that something that you guys after recording all these songs, did you guys realize this in the beginning, in the middle, or in the end of the record making process?
Yes, I can speak to this because we were very intentional about conveying a storyline through this album. Apparently,
Yes.
when we just started this band, I think the first song we wrote was "But I Still," and then we wrote I think it was "Vertical."
Okay.
And then I think as more songs come, I just start to think about how do we connect them together. And then I start to feel like I want to convey a story um, um, that has like a very, strong emotional line. So
Yeah, it should
after
be
that,
personal to us as well. Should be.
it's also very personal to us. I think it reflects our own life in some way. Um, but after that, even without composing all the songs on the album, I kind of already have a sense of, oh, this song will appear at the beginning. This song will probably be, around the fifth one, sixth one. So, and then I kind of started to think about what are the missing pieces to the storyline. So songs like Hues is actually composed after that fact, because we want to write a song about this person conveying his internal struggle around, after the Vertical song, which is, this about this person kind of like falling into this chaos of memory. That's how the song comes out. And then I think, so yeah, it's like intentional. We started thinking about this about midway, about composing 2 to 3 songs. We started to think, oh, we should like convey a storyline here. And I think we really like how the final result is actually able to convey this kind of line to our audiences. And I really want to continue, telling story for all the albums that we're going to make from this point on.
Wow. Yeah, and it totally like it shows. There is definitely a sort of soundtrack type of feel to it too. I mean, was there a specific movie you guys were thinking about as well?
Not really a movie, to be.
Yeah, not really.
We do have let's say specific scenes in our head or whatever.
Yeah, we like visualize. I remember when I was talking to Pei, about this story. Initially, it was about a person he escaping from his past, and he starts running, and then he fell, but he stood up again and keep running, and finally walking. This not sort of it's not even a storyline. It's just a visual of how the album will flow, kind of imposed to this person running. Although the final story that we want to convey is probably pretty different from a person running. But I think doing this visual exercise really help us to figure out.
I mean, we really just delivered the our feelings in the end, even though it started with just music, and then in the middle, we're transitioning to expressing it. It's really open for interpretation for everyone, but I guess the central message shouldn't be far.
Right. So with kind of the idea of that I kind of also wanted to get into some of the record in general, the process and such. And there was one specific thing that I for some reason it just was in the back of my head, and I was kind of just sort of like trying to understand why did it become a full length record than an EP? Do you guys, you know what I mean? Like, did you guys, cause
Yeah.
I was thinking like, man, they really like made the jump from one single videos and in a full length record. I'm like, Jesus Christ, that's insane. And not many people, not many bands in general will do that. You know what I mean? So why the
Yeah.
decision on an LP?
For me, it's because I just really like every single song, that I don't want any song to fall into, the B side of a single, an EP.
Okay.
I really want to, like, I really like every single song that I wanted to appear on, a major thing. That's
Mhm.
kind of the reason. Obviously, we thought about doing EP because, it's been so long that we didn't release anything.
Right.
People were also like, you guys should definitely release an EP before going to LP. Uh, I think that's the reason why we just.
Yeah, and that's also because by the time I realized we should release something, the idea of a story is already in our head.
Yeah.
So we kind of feel like, oh, if we don't complete this, it's like
Yeah.
missing pieces of the message we're trying to send.
Yeah.
Plus, we're already halfway through there. Why not just just go through with it and be done with it?
Yeah.
Right. And that really definitely like shows. It definitely shows for sure. You guys really did take care of most of these songs. Actually, all of the songs. I mean, it seems as though that every little thing that you guys thought was like probably that needs to be redone or rethought about was definitely thought about. Now, in this kind of thing in the record, the sort of the portion of like the recording process that I wanted to talk about.
Mhm.
How massive was the budget for this record?
It's more than what we expected.
Yes. So we actually tried to save a lot. So for example, in this record, guitars and basses were recorded at home through DI.
Okay.
And then we simply choose to reamp it in studio just to save studio time, because studio time in New York is so expensive.
Absolutely.
The only instrument that is actually recorded in the studio besides strings were drums. That took us about 2 days to record all the drums.
Right.
Which was very tense because literally each song we can't have any time to figure out how to do better. We only have like 2 hours for each song. Now for the string part, it's actually, we're kind of lucky because the strings, they were actually all students.
Okay.
So a friend of us introduced us to the string leader. She found us kind of this student band for this purpose. So that was actually not quite as expensive as we thought.
Right.
Now, actually, the most expensive part probably comes to mixing
Yes.
because
Yes.
we were so honored to have Mino Takaki from Toe to do this for us.
Absolutely.
So we decided to pay a lot of money for that. And that's
it's worth
it turns out that he's like done a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the breakdown. So like the overall budget, we kept it under, I think.
Are we see the number?
It's fine. I think it's a reasonable number. I think we kept it under 9,000.
Okay.
Is the answer.
Yeah. I that actually kind of makes sense, because if you're talking about mixing, like with Mino from Toe and his production team is really good. Yeah, I wouldn't have had any of the, because you know what, like what the whole the after product is clean, it's beautiful, and it's so good. But one thing that I was also kind of curious about, why is there like 2 to 3 different types of snare sounds?
Wow.
Yes. Wow. You really, really dig very deep into our album.
I'm not even, dude. I'm not even kidding. You guys, when I send you guys that message, I've been listening to the fucking record for 2 weeks. I'm like,
Wow.
okay,
Dude, thank you
You
so
are
much.
amazing.
dude. You
Thank
don't
you
even
so much
know.
for-
I love your guys' record. It's really good. But
Yeah.
you know, and I try to make sense of it because
Mhm.
certain snare sounds do fit for certain songs, especially for the second song of the record. You had to have that high pitch. Now, was that something that you guys were that you guys did that on purpose, or was it because of studio time? You didn't have enough time to change the pitch or the type of snare sound. What was going on with that?
So we were very lucky to get this recording studio owned by the legendary drummer. His name is Jojo Mayer.
Okay.
He is in a jazz scene. He plays a lot of kind of like, drum and bass, like madness stuff. He has a collection of everything: cymbals, snares, toms.
And he keep them in the studio.
Yeah,
So that everyone who goes into recording can just borrow them and then for recording.
Yeah. So we actually chose the studio partially because of this reason, because we think, a different song might have different type of drums or cymbals that fits them. So we went in, and then for every song we kind of like picked from this massive collection of snares. We try to like hit each of them to see which one sounds the best, and then just use that for the song.
Wow. See, and I knew there was a purpose for that because again, I know I'm a big geek. I mean, I had to really like once I knew that you guys were going to allow me to interview you all, like I really wanted to get really deep with the record. And who's singing in the record? Is it one of you guys?
That would be Andy.
That's me.
Absolutely. You have a great voice. I'm like, that's pretty tight. That's pretty tight. I wanted to get that clear because it wasn't listed on who sang on the record.
Yeah,
there's
no credit to whoever was singing.
Ends up to be me. Yes.
Yeah. He doesn't want to be credited for
that. Exactly.
Man, but let me tell you, it came out really good, and especially the lyricism and such. I mean it really has a great flow, very R&B like, and it definitely shows.
Yeah.
So here's one thing I was also very happy about is the fact that you guys are an Asian band playing math rock, with a huge influence from post-rock bands. Now, this kind of makes me, well, not kind of, but it makes me really proud because, our culture, we don't really flourish in this sound here in the States, other than what, Toe being international. The only Asian band that I know that's a math rock band is from San Diego. They're called Stage Kids. And I became, partial friends with them and, kind of catch up with them every once in a while. But culturally, how did this was there sort of a influence in you guys' culture? I'm Filipino, so it's kind of hard to find, Filipino minds. They listen to more pop and hip hop and R&B, and I'm like, I don't get it, man. You know what I mean? I like this stuff, you know what I mean? But I'd rather listen to hardcore, punk, emo, math rock, the whole nine. How has your guys' culture sort of, I guess, helped, create this band and sort of the sound that you've created on this record? Just everything in general.
Yeah, for sure. Trying to think about, I think I have a lot of influence from Miyazaki films.
Okay.
So, the composer Joe Hisaishi, or in general, just kind of like Japanese folk music.
Yeah.
So you can probably hear some of the influence out of there. We actually were checking Twitter the other day, and we saw this Japanese person commenting that you think our band is trying. It's kind of like Miyazaki film style music, but
Mm-hmm.
phrased in a math rock grammar, which I think is a really interesting description. I think that probably has a big effect onto our sound, and also, interesting.
Yeah. I
We
really had to think
definitely,
about I had to really think about this
yeah,
question too, you know what I mean? I really did.
yeah. I think definitely. So we grew up listening to a different set of music than people who grew up from here. So that I think the type of music you listen to. I guess like to this day, I think the type of music I really like usually can trigger some of my nostalgic feeling,
Yeah,
and I think
absolutely.
that's, to be honest, like I think people all like music that triggers that it's
Something
very,
that's familiar.
yes,
Yeah.
something that's familiar. So that really makes our sound different from a lot of local band in the United States.
Right.
And I don't know if this is a good answer. I think this probably doesn't make sense. Um, yeah.
Well,
Anyway, I remember Andy. Sorry, I remember Andy mentioned this once that actually it's from his friends after seeing our first show, which happened in Berkeley. That they feel like our music is kind of like a bunch of people who are not good at expressing themselves, who are really reserved in daily life, but they have so much inside emotionally. They have to find a way to release it, so we end up erupting into a huge wave of emotions, which is kind of like our live kit. That's how we present it. Which I think it's a pretty Asian thing in a lot of
yes.
ways.
Yes. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that's very accurate. I think in a lot of Asian culture, not expressing out is actually a more respectful way to deal with problems instead of, you know, in the United States, everyone encouraged people to speak out, to talk
Right.
about issues. Um, so I do feel that like a lot of the emotion that we want to express in this band is indeed related to that kind of feeling.
but it's so natural to us. Like we don't really think about it until
Yeah.
you ask about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, the idea really is to kind of at the moment you guys are feeling a certain way and you're trying to create that, message of feeling through what you write musically. I mean, I asked that question because, for me, uh, yeah, that's how we were taught. Is just kind of just shut up and just do the work. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're you know what I mean? Just take it in strides. Move around what roadblocks are given to you, and that's just how we grew up.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, and it's really strange, because when I listen to the
Yeah.
record, it definitely has that. There's like a lot of you may feel a lot of not necessarily restraint, but sort of I guess the restraint to hold those feelings and sort of cry it all out until towards the end, and then it feels good. So there's really a great start off. It's like if you're in a plane and
Yeah.
you leave you leave the airport, you're in the air for a while, and then you get
Yeah.
turbulence, and then you're about to land, and then that's sort of like, oh my god, like that, that feeling of turbulence is over, and it definitely speaks out. I'm sorry I keep talking about your guys'
No,
record so
no.
much, you know what I
So
mean?
actually, this is very interesting
Yeah.
because like this is exactly the kind of visual, one of the visuals that we were thinking when we were
Yeah.
thinking about the storyline.
It feels kind of surreal having somebody else,
Yeah, this is incredible.
Yeah.
Arthur, you're incredible.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to relate to anybody musically these days, and this is why I was so adamant about talking to you guys, and because there's a special relationship that I have. This is really the bridge to this gap. So it's me,
Yeah.
you guys, and the bridge is the record. And knowing that your guys' history, your culture, and whatnot is what sort of bridges that for me. Because how often do we have an Asian math rock band who resides currently in New York that, is instrumental, has catchy hooks, has a story that provides feeling of happiness, guilt, sadness, relief. It's almost it's very therapeutic, and that's kind of what not a lot of bands can do these days, because usually they're it's all systematic, whereas yours, it's almost as if you're kind of trying to grow something from the ground up to make sure in each individual, like like a plant, right? Like you want to take care of it, you want to make sure it grows big and strong, right? And then the end result is that flower blooms.
Yeah.
And then there you go, you know what I mean? And I know it's kind of strange to talk to someone from on the phone who is describing you guys' music, but honestly, guys, this is it. This is the record. This is it. This will start a lot of interesting projects, and I'm happy about it. I just can't wait for the vinyl. I'm definitely gonna get the vinyl and whatnot. But now,
thank you so much, Isaac.
Really appreciate it.
This is very touching for us as well, because
Wow, we didn't expect so much from you.
Especially nowadays people only listen to singles. When we were doing this record, planning out this entire storyline for this 40 minutes album, some people definitely said that, hey, like, there's like no meaning of doing this, is nobody cares about the song orders, they just listen to like singles, just whichever was catchy. So I was actually very I was like, maybe nobody will really get it. It's just like very touching to hear that someone actually listened through the album again and again.
Well,
and
it's
feeling the same thing that we were feeling.
yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, why would you guys not want to have a response like this? I mean, the proof is in the pudding, guys. Come on. I mean, it's such a great record. Now, for most of those people that are like, oh, we're just about singles and whatnot, that's just because they're. If you really think about it, those types of people are shallow. You know what I mean? It's let's just be real. You know what I mean? They're fucking shallow, and they don't really get the bigger picture. I mean, that's the thing. Even on the picture that you guys see, that I see here on the record, of a person just standing like in isolation, that he's in the center of the earth. He's ready. He's ready to go whatever direction. You know what I mean? And he'll find something, but he just got to start. So it's it's really just people are just really shallow these days, and it's just they don't really get it. They really don't get it. It's crazy. But to kind of go further along, so I know that we mentioned, or you guys mentioned, that unfortunately the drummer is not currently in the band anymore. And I was kind of curious because it was saying that you guys were a trio rather than a quartet. What was the reason why the drummer is not continuing on with Concrete?
There's a lot of personal reasons.
But we're still on good terms.
Of course.
Yeah, so I think in New York, I think
people make bad decisions. What we can do is to mitigate the whatever bad happens. But
I have to admit though, so making this album, especially, there's a lot of very conceptual things in it. I think I'm being very, I'm really holding on to a lot of ideas that might seem to be abnormal. I'm being very, very strict about, this part of the song has to sound this way. that sort of thing.
Right.
Which, you know, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think I was doing a good job kind of maintaining the dynamic of the band.
Right.
Because of, being so, geek about all these like details.
Yeah.
And I think, there's trade-offs.
Well, nobody's perfect. But let's just say that it's some personal things happen, and
yeah.
Well, I mean, I get it. I mean, it may be a very sensitive subject, but the dynamic of a band is really important. Obviously, there must have been something in that situation where your drummer was like, I can't really do this. You know what I mean? I think that, you know, maybe this is not for me. Maybe I won't be able to like continue on with the band, and that's okay because everybody has the reasons of either staying or going. You know what I mean? But the fact of the matter is, Kiyoshi was there to document and help you guys document a beautiful record.
Yes.
And that's really what matters. You know what I mean? That's
Absolutely.
That's what really matters. And whether if he does come back or not, I mean, and if you guys are still in good terms, that's cool. That I think that's great. I mean, but maybe right now it's just it's not his time, to be in the band. Maybe he needs to do something else. Hopefully he comes back. Hopefully, because he's an amazing drummer, dude. I mean, his way of like creating really hitting those notes, man, is just insane. So you guys did a really good job with it. But other than that, I mean, I don't know what else to say or ask. I mean, honestly, I think I got a lot of what I wanted from you guys, other than the fact that I should have just called you guys up to go hang out and like get some
for sure.
You know what I mean, to get some hot
Arthur,
pot or some shit.
I totally feel the same thing. I think I really want to meet you in person. It's kind of crazy.
That's not too far.
Yeah, we should just like meet up, like I don't know, Stanford or something. Having getting to know a person through a record is pretty incredible. And I think we also in turn got to know a lot about you, and
and I'm pretty sure that from this little interview that we definitely feel more confident about how our message can get across.
And it's very we're so grateful to understand like they're actually like-minded people. Even we know each other because of music. It's
sorry about that.
It's New York.
Yeah, of course it's New York, and it's let me just tell you guys this, okay? There's a special place in my heart for music like this and bodies of work like this, and I've always been wanting to find it, and you guys may have been that band that I've been looking for the longest time. Yes, Toe, I still have that gap, even though those records are the bridge to them, as close as I was able to meet them, to see them in that show, but being able to communicate with them, I would still have that bridge, or not that bridge, I would still have that gap. You know what I mean? So the thing, guys, is that the record has so much commonality. It's stupid. It's so fucking good. So fucking good. I swear to God. I'd be at my desk like, I don't know how they did it, and how they really got this far.
Thank you so much.
It's really beautiful. I'm curious to know, what's your guys' next steps? I know that a vinyl pressing is coming, which I'm freaking excited about. But what do you guys have in the horizon? Are you guys going to be going on tour, or is it just more of like we're gonna just push out more conceptual projects. We're gonna go farther beyond than just touring.
Yep.
What do you guys got planned?
You want to talk about it, Pei?
Oh yeah, I mean, so far we do have plans for a short tour along the East Coast first.
Yes.
Yeah, just to get our stuff out there, let more people hear it. And we are at the same time working on new projects, new songs.
Yeah, we don't want the next one to be 3 years from now.
And the funny thing is, just remember this, that our first video telling people when our album was out was in 2017, saying new album out this fall.
Right.
Yeah.
We were late for 2 years. So this time, a lot of the songs are already in progress. We already start to have a lot of ideas. I think me personally is starting to visualize some sort of storyline of the next one. But before that, I think, this time Listen and Learn, we're probably going to release some singles first.
Okay.
We do have some materials that didn't go into the Drifter album, which we think, this is a good time to actually release it as a singles and EPs. So stay tuned. Hopefully that will come out in the next, maybe we'll wait for half a year and then start releasing something again. Hopefully the next big album can come out in less than 2 years.
Yeah. And I get it. I mean, I'll wait. I'll definitely
Thank
wait.
you.
I've waited this long, so now now I'm glad I waited. I definitely glad I waited. Right from that first bedroom single of Iris Sky. It definitely up until now, this is definitely worth it. So guys, I just want to thank you very much for having this conversation with me, and hopefully I can see you guys. I'm gonna definitely miss your guys' debut, record release. And I'm hoping to see you guys later in the year. Before
sure.
I gotta at least see you guys before the end of the year. So there has to be some sort of meetup.
For sure.
Yeah,
cool.
Definitely will be.
Yeah.
So
thank you so much, Arthur.
Absolutely, and
let's be friends.
Yeah,
I want to see you in person.
Absolutely, we're definitely gonna do that. You'll be meeting me and my girlfriend and shit, and
nice.
definitely take us around. You know what I'm saying? Because we definitely
of course.
We're foodies, so we want to eat all the good shit. So
cool.
You know what I mean?
We know all the good shit.
Cool.
Absolutely. All right, guys. I'm gonna I'm gonna take off. Thank you for letting me interview all, and I'll see you guys later.
Thank you for having us.
Cool. See you soon.
All right. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
And that concludes this episode of the Bueno Power Hour podcast. I wanted to thank Andy and Pei for joining me in. Sadly, we couldn't have Kenji come in to have this conversation. Would have loved to talk to him as well, because his bass lines are sick. They're amazing. This band means a lot to me because it does definitely trigger a lot of my memories as a person who has been through a lot, over the years and up until now, having some sort of stability, being able to kind of retract some of that and, have a way to listen to music that sort of has me, come to terms with those, frustrating moments, is a record that I've been wanting for so long. So it's incredible that a body of work like this got released, and it's certainly a great record. So check out Drifter. It should be in all platforms, on Bandcamp and on Spotify. I would actually go to Bandcamp and buy their record to support the band. They should have a vinyl release and hopefully some merch, which I'll be definitely copying. Guys, if you like this episode, go ahead and hit that like button, and if you want episodes like this every 2 weeks, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And as always, thank you for tuning in to Bueno Power Hour podcast. See you guys. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Pei. I love you guys.